Okay, well, so next up is our guest speaker tonight. And Adrienne Lake, Daydream Believer Creative is your biz. Is it co-owner or is it just you?
It's me and my business partner, Charlie Faye.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm sure. So bottom line is music consulting, but also publicity, right? I mean, is what you do in general, right?
A whole lot of a lot, and yeah, that includes publicity.
Yeah, and what I'll do, I'll have you come up and then let you tell your story for sure. But without further ado, Adrienne Lake, come on up. All right.
Hi, everyone. So I was going to do this, write out my speech and then go over it and then have it rememorized for y'all. But I spent the week trying to save my dog, who's still alive. So and doing a lot better. So I think we have two choices. I could just go completely off the cuff, or I have this very well-written speech. Does anybody have any preference?
I mean, I would love to just hear your background, like how you got into it and stuff like that, and maybe in your speech. But I mean, I think that would be something that'd be pretty
okay
cool to hear about.
All right, well, I can go off the cuff then. Yeah. So when people ask me, how did you get into music? How did you get into doing what you're doing? I usually have to ask them, how much time do you have? Because it goes way, way back to being very young. At like 2-3 years old, I was asking a lot about music. And then at 4, I started finding change underneath the couch cushions. And I would go and buy records. And the first record I ever bought was Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. It's still one of my favorite records. Quincy Jones is a god. If you haven't seen the documentary, I highly recommend it. As engineers and future producers, he is a legend and his story is incredible. But I remember just studying the artwork. And unfortunately, I was an early reader, so I was reading about like Stevie Wonder contributed, Rod Temperton, Michael Jackson co-produced it, and Paul McCartney even wrote one of the songs. So just being able to do that deep dive at a young age, it just continuously snowballed with the obsessions. It was Michael Jackson, it was Prince. When I was really young, it was even Elvis. And my first concert was Duran Duran. My second one was REM, and my third one was The Cure. And I'm not embarrassed by that at all. And most people are really embarrassed by the first concerts they saw. All amazing acts with like really incredible production, and all very different too. So really how I got my first job was just showing up at the only club I was allowed to go to as a teenager, showing up over and over again. I would go as long as I was allowed to. Every night it was open, see whatever band was playing. It was this post-punk, indie rock kind of all ages DIY art space. It was really big. It was in a warehouse in Tucson, Arizona called the Downtown Performance Center. And I was there so much that the owner noticed me. And I think he also noticed me because my mom would call there and ask questions like, are there adults there? Is there alcohol there? Who's looking out for the kids? And that man, Steve, gave all the right answers, and therefore that was like one of the only places I was allowed to go. So thank you, Steve, for getting me out of the house and also giving me my first job. After I graduated, he hired me to make posters, and then that was working the door, and then that was helping out with getting the artists what they wanted, and then helping out with booking. And if you were into indie rock or post-punk, this was the place where all of the bands would play. Everybody from John Spencer Blues Explosion, Sunny Day Real Estate, Jawbox, Jawbreaker, all of those post-punk bands came through there. So I got to meet some of my idols, which was very cool, and it made me realize that I just wanted to keep doing it. I think some of us are just kind of born with a gene that embraces music and then makes us want to be part of the creation of it, a part of getting it out into the world and nurturing it and supporting it. And I was in a few bands, but I didn't think of myself as a true artist. I never had any lessons or anything like that. I was in a performance post-punk band called Then Tengari, which got kind of big for just a minute. It was very weird and experimental. I'm sure my parents were appalled.
What'd you play?
I did percussion and some vocals and a lot of performance art. There was a lot of body paint. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was the 90s. What are you going to do? And Tucson, Arizona had a very amazing music scene at that time. It was very safe and policed and supportive, and it was a great place to come up into music. And so I went to college. I studied media arts, which was the closest thing that I could get at the University of Arizona to the music industry. They had some classes, but it was, film, television, radio. And after I graduated, I just wanted to get some big city experience and be able to take that with me wherever I went. Interestingly enough, when I was a teenager, on a road trip, I came through Austin on my way to New Orleans, and it happened to be during South by Southwest. And I had no idea what South by Southwest was. I was walking down the street like I was in some fantasy land, and I ran into a friend of mine, Bob Logg, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, well, I'm opening for Beck and Johnny Cash. What are you doing here?" And I kind of decided I need to live in this place where this magical stuff happens. And before I did that, I decided I wanted to get that big world experience. So I moved to Los Angeles, and lucky for me, a friend of mine at my last job knew somebody who worked at a record label, introduced us, and we just became fast friends. It was like a brother-sister relationship. And even though the only real experience that I had was helping to run this, scrappy DIY music venue, he got me an interview with the head of A&R. And this guy, Jeff Aldrich, was very renowned. He had worked with huge bands. He'd been doing it since the 80s, and he was the head of A&R at Giant Records, which was a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. And amazingly enough, I got the interview. He must have been charmed by my just off the turnip truck, enthusiasm, and somehow I got that job. And honestly, I wouldn't have gotten that interview without that friend of mine. So I owed him a lot. And, once you get in the door, if you are a person that is hardworking, easy to work with, and honest, with good character, that in itself is going to keep putting those options in front of you. So the job that I got was just a temporary one, but it ended up getting extended and extended and extended. And then finally, I think it was like a year later, Jeff helped me get another job, and I ended up at Capitol Records for a while. And there was a band that had been on the label that had just left the label, and they were called Jimmy Eat World. They're an Arizona band that I knew from playing that first venue that I worked at. And I remember getting tipsy at a holiday party and telling them that they were just, sitting on a gold mine and ignoring it because they didn't really do too much with that record. But eventually I had a headhunter who recommended me for a position at a very respected newish label called DreamWorks Records that was founded by the illustrious David Geffen. And also, that branched off into their animation and film divisions. So it was DreamWorks, SKG, Spielberg, Katzenberg, Geffen. So there were some big names behind this company, and they had quickly gotten a reputation of being very artist-friendly for a label. And I had a headhunter who had recommended me for a business and legal position, which I was not interested in because I was always thought of myself as more of a creative. And they kept pushing and pushing, and finally they said, look, you would be working with the best of the best, one of the best attorneys out there. And anything that you learn in this job, you can take with you and use that anywhere. And I thought about that, and they were right. So I took that job. I was working for a very renowned attorney named Richard Lehrer, who, and he would be okay with me telling you this because we're still friends. At that time, he was known as the Screamer. He was a man who knew what he wanted and wasn't afraid to be loud to get it. And I'm sure that was very tough on his assistants, but it didn't bother me. I just realized he just needed to get it out of his system. And when something happened and he would get upset, I would just stand there and let him get it out. And then I'd say, do you feel better? Good, let's figure out how to fix it. And apparently nobody else had dealt with him that way, and he really appreciated it. So I got a lot of vases of flowers to the point where like my house was filled with vases. And we had a really good working relationship. And you have to understand that this was a time in the business that was very pre-Me Too. And it was not easy, especially in A&R, which I went on to. There just weren't a lot of women doing that, and there weren't a lot of people supporting women. I'm very much a third wave feminist, and I was very disappointed to see that women weren't even looking out for themselves. But Richard was one of the only people that was really looking out. And if he felt, or if he heard a story about me being disrespected, the Screamer would come out and he would correct that. And then I would get a chance to, tell them, why that wasn't okay and, what should be done in the future. And I was so appreciative of Richard for that,
What year was this?
Oh my gosh, this was 99?
Okay, yes, right around 2000.
Yeah, right around 2000. And the other year, I went out to lunch with Richard, and I realized I had never told him how much I had appreciated his support and his looking out for women. And I told him, and that man got tears in his eyes in this fancy restaurant. And he told me that he just felt like when something like that would happen and he would see it, he would think of his wife and his daughter. His wife was an entertainment attorney as well. And that wasn't okay and something needed to be said. So I felt so supported and loved there. And one day Richard pulled me aside and he said, hey, I'm maybe shooting myself in the foot here, but I know that you're more of a creative person than this job allows. What would you like to do here? And I told him, I think you know what I would like to do because I'm already kind of doing it on the side. I had been giving tips and, talking shop with an A&R executive there named Luke Wood. And we were neighbors and we would carpool, and sometimes he would pop something in the CD player and play it and say, what do you think? And I'd tell him what I thought. And I remember one day he popped a CD in the player and said, what do you think? And I said, sounds like Jimmy Eat World's new music is killer. This is amazing. You need to get a hold of this. And that was exactly what he wanted to hear. So I think I got off course there, but yeah, so Richard ended up creating a junior A&R executive position for me, working with Luke. And yeah, in the meantime, I had been scouting for Luke, but totally unofficially. Nobody was paying me to do that. It wasn't my job. One tip that I gave him was there was this band back then that I loved called At the Drive-In. And I told Luke, I think this band is going to be one of the bands that's going to change what is played on the radio. They're in between labels right now. Here is the number of their manager, Blaze James. Give them a call. And we weren't able to get them out of their contractual obligations, but that band did end up changing what was played on the radio. And then when they broke up, the two main guys went on to form the Mars Volta. And so I think I also have At the Drive-In to thank for my getting that promotion there. So when I moved over to A&R, it was a lot of scouting. It was wrangling the artists that we were working with. And that was mostly it, but that was time consuming because in a job like A&R, you're only as good as your last hit. And it is extremely competitive to the point where it's almost psychotic. You go in, you work all day, you're working with your artists, you're in the studio with them, you're out at the clubs watching bands, and there's a magazine called Hits Magazine that would basically give tips and gossip on who was doing what. And they started following me, which I thought was hilarious because I would go to see my friends' bands and then I'd read about it in Hits the next day. And my friends would be like, thanks, Adrienne. People think you're trying to sign us.
Can you tell them a little bit of, just to anybody who doesn't know what A&R is, like what is that role? You know, and I know you're kind of describing it already, but like, what's the official title? You know, what is that? What's it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the role of the A&R executive is they are the link between the artist and the label. So they have two interests that they're looking out for. They're looking out for the label's interests and the artist's interests at the same time. That's why as an artist, a lot of people, I mean, not so much anymore because things have changed, but historically the goal was always to get signed by a label. And a label, any label, you know, but I've learned that your A&R person is a make or break thing. They need to understand you, they need to know how to promote you, and they need to have pull. They need to have the support of the team at the label. And Luke Wood was very brilliant at that. He would come up with these great presentations to the staff, and he would get them excited and them on board. So it was like they were invested in the success of that artist instead of him just saying, okay, we signed this band. Now radio people work it, you know, publicists work it. He had just a really innovative way of getting the team invested. And that is one thing that a good A&R person does. They also need to be very connected because they're the ones that are going to be the connector. They're going to get you a director for your videos. You know, they are going to hook you up with a producer. They're going to guide your career with the label. And a lot of people want that job, but it is a lot of work. I mean, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe this. I did not have pets. I did not really have friends that weren't in music. Even maintaining a relationship was tough when you're working nonstop. But you do it because you love it and you love the artists that you work with. And I was lucky enough to work with some great artists. Jimmy Eat World, they were fantastic. AFI, also like very easy to work with, super smart, didn't need a lot of hand holding, and just sort of a joy to be around as well. Like we would hang out in parking lots at 4 a.m. and we'd be laughing, and then we'd realize, oh my gosh, we've got a full day tomorrow. We got to go home, stop hanging out in parking lots. And I also had I don't know if this is the right word, but yeah, I mean, I got to work with Elliott Smith, who is and was an icon. And unfortunately, the stage where I came in with Elliott, he was not doing well. And part of my job was to keep an eye on him. He was my neighbor. And nobody else at the label was talking to him at that time because he wasn't doing well. But whenever he'd call, I'd talk to him. He'd keep me on the phone for like an hour, just the sweetest guy and unbelievably talented. So yeah, rest in peace, Elliott. But so it was, yeah, working with those artists that we had, and then also scouting. I even got to do scouting for David Geffen. Now, he wouldn't call me and say, Adrienne, I want you to check out this band. I would get the assignment through the assistant, and then I'd go to San Diego or wherever the artist was playing and write up a full report. But that was really cool too. And I did a lot of scouting on my own. A lot of the bands, I'm very proud to say that I really wanted to sign back then, have actually done pretty well. Like Interpol and Nico Case, still big fans, especially of Nico. And there are some bands that I wanted to sign that I thought could have been big, but couldn't sell them at the label. And, you know, their careers sort of drifted, so you probably wouldn't know about some of them. But yeah, it was really an adventure, and it was an interesting time to be in A&R because it was the time of the digital revolution. So things had been done the same way at record labels for ages. And then Napster came around, and then all this other technology popped up, and it really scared the labels. They had a hard time keeping music private, like especially with AFI. Their fans were so rabid that we had a hard time getting anything from them that wouldn't somehow be leaked. And now it wouldn't be necessarily a big deal if the music was leaked. Back then it was. Right. So yeah, I got to see a lot of changes happening at labels, and a lot of panic, and things have changed so drastically, as we all know. A lot of it's for the better, you know. Artists have a lot more control. Musicians can create their own music more easily. You know, there weren't as many artists that were creating music in their bedrooms. The technology just wasn't really out there. And so it was an interesting time to be there. It was the time when a lot of the bands that I liked were getting played on the radio, like the White Stripes, the Strokes, again, at the drive-in, these types of bands that people at labels used to laugh at me, kind of make fun of me, call me the indie rocker, that I liked these bands. And next thing I know, they were all fighting me for them. So it was, yeah, really interesting time. But I also knew that I wasn't going to be in Los Angeles my whole life. I made a deal with myself that when I couldn't laugh at it anymore, it was time to get out. So I was at DreamWorks for, I think, 3.5 years. And I kind of hit that point where I wanted to move on, come back to go to Austin and start a career there. When I left, they offered me a job scouting wherever I wanted to, and I should have taken them up on that and just gone to Austin. But what I really wanted at that point was a break, because as I mentioned, when you are working that hard for that long, burnout is a thing. And mental health and self-care was not something being discussed back then, and it needs to be. So yeah, I just kind of hit the burnout stage. I went back to my hometown and decided I was just going to relax for a little bit and then head over to Austin. But when I got back to town, the folks in music knew it, and I got offered some dream jobs that was very hard to turn down. So I was offered a job booking and promoting at my favorite club in the world, Club Congress. And that was really fun. I actually got to book Jimmy Eat World there, and booked a lot of amazing bands. Got a really close relationship with the band Calexico. For a big election event, I managed to book Linda Ronstadt with a mariachi band. And she performed Canciones de mi Padre, which is one of my favorite albums. I grew up on it, and it was one of those moments. And this is why we do this. This is why we work so hard and go without sleep, is these moments where, whether you're an A&R person or whether you're a talent buyer, whatever you have helped create, or not even helped create, you're just helping to facilitate it, it happens. And then there's that moment where it brings all these people together and it's pure unbridled joy. And sometimes, like as an A&R person, I remember going to see, AFI or Jimmy Eat World playing festivals and just watching everybody go completely nuts. And that feeling is what keeps you going. And it's the same feeling whether it's, you're an A&R person or a talent buyer or even a music journalist, which I did that too. So, so I was booking at Club Congress for a while, and then I got the offer to be a music journalist for the main daily there, and they also had a entertainment website. So I got to have my own regular column. They basically let me do whatever the hell I wanted, which was great. I would say, hey, can I cover Coachella? Can I cover South by Southwest? Calexico is going to New York and they're doing this thing. Can I go with them? And they said yes to pretty much everything, which was, I was incredibly lucky. I had an amazing editor, and I would write for the print edition, and then my editor would chop it down and make it really boring in my eyes, but they would run the full story online. And that was really fun too. And then of course, newspapers not doing well. I somehow survived, I think, 4 rounds of layoffs, and I don't know how. Every time I heard about layoffs, I thought, oh my God, this is it. The party's over. And I ended up doing that for about 5 years until finally the party was over. And then it was time to come out to Austin before somebody else dropped some amazing opportunity in my lap that would get me stuck in Tucson forever. So the interesting thing about Austin is that I thought, my original plan of going and getting the big city experience and then going wherever I want, and then it would be easy to make my career. Well, that wasn't true in Austin in 2011. They didn't care what I did in LA or New York or whatever. They only cared who I worked with here. It was very insular. There was really no industry. A lot of great bands, a lot of great venues, but no infrastructure to support them. And folks were pretty anti-LA, New York, because, Texas pride. And that kind of worked against Austin. But since then, things have changed a lot. They've sort of figured out that we need people coming in and building infrastructure here so that we can actually support these artists. And now we have a BMI office, we have a TuneCore office. C3 has been here for a long time. They do Lollapalooza, they do ACL Fest. And we've got AEG had just moved in very quietly. They're another superpower. So it is building up here. And I made it my mission to become very involved in the community when I moved here, when I realized I wasn't going to be able to do just whatever the hell I wanted. So I dove into this nonprofit called Austin Music Foundation. And they were fantastically supportive, and I volunteered with them, and it was really, really helpful. And that's where I learned how important community is in Austin. And when you invest time in community like that, it invests back in you. So later, when I started my own business, I felt very supported, and that's why we didn't have to really do much hustling to get clients. The word of mouth was fantastic. So I kind of had to be humbled and start over here, which I was actually totally up for. And I started running a 4-stage venue and doing all of the marketing, promo, and booking. That was a huge job. And the great thing about it is they also gave me full freedom to do and book whatever I wanted, basically. So it was live music, it was burlesque, it was a really fun show that eventually came over originally from the UK called Shitface Shakespeare. It was everything, and multiple stages to fill. I was able to get really creative, especially during South by Southwest when the place just became mayhem, like 2,000 people, 4 stages. It was pretty glorious. But at one point, I realized that
What stages was it? Was it part of what was it again?
It was called Spider House.
Okay, Spider House. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, of course.
After I left, it kind of imploded, so that's why I don't always mention the name, but it was after I left. I didn't have anything to do with that. They all started suing each other. Yeah, it was and is a pretty amazing space. It's actually still there because...
and this is before Daydream, right? Or is this...
Way before Daydream Believer, yeah. This was, I think I started there in 2012, 2013, and I was there till 2017. And at that point, I got the offer from Herd Entertainment to be their senior talent buyer. So that meant booking at the Parish, Empire Control Room, and Garage. Also booking shows regionally in San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. It was all over. I booked hip hop, I booked indie rock, I booked electronic music. Sometimes I booked genres I wasn't even all that familiar with. But it was a great learning experience, and that was also a lot of hard work because it wasn't just running one venue. It wasn't. It was booking multiple stages, multiple spaces. So the tricky thing with these jobs is that you're never done. You don't get to go home and say you're done. Your phone is blowing up all the time, and after I was there for a bit, I got an offer from South by Southwest to be a music festival programmer. And that was a really interesting 6 months. I say 6 months because the pandemic hit and we all got laid off. But it was really fun. This sounds crazy because, when you're an artist, you submit to South by Southwest. It's our job as the programmers to go through each and every one of those applications, watch the videos, listen to the music, and I was discovering the most amazing stuff from the most unexpected places. They put you in charge of a country. They put me in charge of Italy, and Italy was sort of like most people wanted to work with the UK or Africa or Australia. But yeah, poor Italy. Culturally, what was going on politically, it wasn't really working in the favor of the artists at that time. So they needed the help. They needed somebody in their corner because the showcases that Italy would put on wasn't really doing anything for the artists. So I would work really hard to put those artists on really great lineups so that it was worth it for them. It's a lot of money. You're paying for your visas, the transportation. It is a huge investment for these folks to come over. And
how many bands play at South by?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
I'm sure it's thousands or something.
I mean, it's been changing. South by has been changing.
But it's still got to be surely thousands, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm curious.
I mean, the numbers are going down now that the convention center is out of the picture.
Yeah.
It was a lot smaller this year. I don't know if anybody noticed.
Yeah,
and it will be small again. For a while, they have South by London, they have South by Australia. Yeah. So it's getting spread out and a little bit less dense here. But it was still an amazing 6 months because one of the things that just blew my mind was how fast things can happen there. The publicity department would say, to all of us programmers, like, who have you discovered? Who are you in love with? Let us know. Do you have ideas that we can pitch? You know, are you seeing trends? And you would give them all those ideas. And the next thing you know, this like little psych rock Italian band that nobody heard of is getting written up in Pitchfork. Thank you, South by Publicists. And that just blew my mind because normally this stuff doesn't happen that fast. And I was so excited to see what happened to the artists and the events that I put together. I just really worked hard to put everybody on a great lineup so nobody was stuck in like a dud lineup in a dud room. And I just couldn't wait to see what happened. And then, you know, the rug got pulled out from under us. And at first it seemed catastrophic. And I mean, it was on a global level catastrophic, but it seemed more music world catastrophic. And everybody felt very sorry for us because this was the first big thing that happened. This is how we knew this was a big deal. This was bigger than us. And
that was a huge moment.
A huge moment because when the decision was made, we, the staff, were finding out along with the rest of the world. So we're just sitting there watching our phones blow up from all of our presenters, the record labels that were working with us.
Because this was in March, like right then and there at the time.
Yeah.
When everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was going skiing and they literally shut the slope down. So it was like everybody just went out in that moment.
It was surreal, but I knew it was going to happen because all of us were working with one country, whether it was in Europe or whatever, and we're seeing all the cancellations come in, and we're hearing from them how bad it was in Italy, how bad it was in these other places. So even though South by was like, keep going, I was just like, I don't know, I think this is bigger than we thought. Fortunately, after the layoffs, Austin Music Foundation reached out and they said, hey, you want to be an artist consultant? And I was like, oh God, yes. And it was a really tumultuous time for artists. They were lost. They didn't know what to do, especially in a place like Austin. Like, if we can't play every weekend or every other weekend, like, what do we do? I saw a lot of tears over Zoom, and basically what they needed was they needed to be told what they were doing right. And they needed to be given ideas, or like, oh, I know you can't do this. You can't play your shows, but if you're really creative, you could do a really unique live stream that'll get eyes on you. And I'm gonna brainstorm a bunch of different ideas. You can get it sponsored by this place, and make it creative, not just one boring old live stream, because I kept telling them sooner rather than later, people are gonna get sick of them. So it was just giving them ideas and letting them know in a weird way, like the silver lining is this is a blessing. All those things you didn't have time to do, well, you've got time now. You can work on your social media, you can work on your fan relationships, you can work on your songwriting, and you can still collaborate with other artists. You just have to be creative. So seeing them come in with tears and then leaving the meeting smiling was incredibly rewarding. And that's kind of when I realized this is the thing that I want to do. I want to be able to be hands-on helping people. And I had gotten an offer much later on down the line from a really great promoter whose ideals I was very much aligned with, but I didn't think I wanted to get back on that horse. And I was debating it on a drive from Tucson to Austin, and my friend Charlie Faye called me, and she said, hey, I know you're doing artist consultations. I've been doing those for years too. Like, maybe we should team up. And it was just this moment where like I was speechless, and I swear like beams of light were shining down from the heavens. And I was like, of course, I can team up with somebody. And fortunately, Charlie reaching out to me was such a godsend because she was the perfect person to team up with. She's known as a musician, primarily. She was known for her band Charlie Faye and the Fayettes, which were like a 60s girl group kind of throwback thing. And she was very, very well respected in the community. And I had worked with her, I had booked her band and was very impressed by how organized and honest and just how well she presented herself. So we made it happen, and it happened so organically, it was shocking. I called that promoter and said, I'm sorry, I won't be able to take this position because I've decided to start my own business. And they said, great, can we be your first client? So that was a really great way to start things out because it was a long-term relationship with them. And then I called Austin Music Foundation and said, hey, I love doing these artist consultations. Do you mind if I let some of the artists know that I have services that I can provide? And they said, yes, here's your second client. So it just was so organic. And I always felt like it would be a struggle, which is, I guess, why I'd put off starting my own thing. But one of the most important things that you can know as people going out in new careers is that, respect and integrity will go so far. Reputation and relationships are everything. So if you've spent years building those reputations and relationships up, like I had, it was fairly easy. And we were just both so blown away by it. Like one of our early clients was Willie Nelson's Austin Opera House. That was a venue that was around back in the 70s, and they were working on bringing it back, and we got to work with them on that. That's Arlen Studios, those folks. Yeah. And so I was working early on with multiple record labels, one out of San Francisco, one here that's been a very long-term client. I worked with artists. One artist that I worked with, Caleb DeCasper, I got so involved, beyond what a publicist would do for an artist that I remember one day I had booked him a show with Big Frida, and somebody came up and was asking me questions about him, and then he said, what is your relationship? And I tried to explain with words, and it was very loud. And then finally, I just said, "I guess I'm his manager." And yeah, that also happened very organically. But I never wanted to be a manager, so I still work with Caleb. I still help him out. We're friends and allies. But my business partner Charlie, she has shifted to full-time artist management, and actually, the business that she works with, Traffic, hires me. So it's just these relationships that become like family things, and those are the best clients, really. You already know them. There's already trust there. They already have faith in you, and it's just been an incredible experience. So I work with a lot of nonprofits too. Right now, I'm running the Songrise Arts Thrive program, where young artists who might have financial barriers that are keeping them from getting into a studio, working with mentors, all those barriers are removed. And I've been pairing them with great artists in the scene, from Skateland to Prom Queen to Jake Lloyd, all these great artists. And this is all happening right now, and I'm just watching it blow all their minds. That's a really fun client right now that I'm working with. And I can't wait to hear the music that they create. So a lot of nonprofit stuff, a lot of events. For example, last year I did an event with my friend Greg Goodman called Meadow Fest. He lost his daughter to suicide, so he decided to do something about it. And we put on this mini festival headlined by Grupo Fantasma, and we had 2 months to put it together and promote it, and it drew 1,000 people. So we're doing it again, and it's going to be even bigger this year, even though it's going to be harder to fundraise because what's going on in the world. But it's these clients where you can create these beautiful things, and when the clients come to you, you're already aligned. and you're not butting heads. I mean, it happens, but and you're very invested too. So almost all your clients become like your babies. And it's my journey to get here has been a little all over the map, but I think that has been what has worked for me, because the experience, like the writing experience and the A&R experience, that all helps me be a better music consultant. You need me to write a press release? I can do that. You need me to suggest producers? I can do that.
Your experience level is obviously extensive at this point. You're getting such a background, it's crazy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so that is the story of, how it all happened. And I just feel so lucky to be in Austin in a community that is so supportive, and that, generally speaking, never have those panic moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have any clients. What am I going to do? It seems like at the right time, they always drop right into my lap. So, it is challenging being your own boss, because if you look ahead and see, oh, all my current client projects, they're all going to end at the same time. That is very, very tricky. So you have to gain some new skills about handling that. And if something goes wrong, it's all up to you. The great thing is that having a business partner like Charlie, we don't work on a ton of projects together. We work on some together, but mostly we lean on each other because this is a tough business. We do it because we love it, but having somebody that we can vent to, or like bounce ideas off, or, hey, can you proof this? Do you have suggestions? And there's 100% trust there. So that is what keeps us going and feeling confident.
I'd love to, I'm sure, I have some questions too, but I bet you people have some questions. Probably artist questions, I would imagine, same thing, I'm sure, consultants, but I don't know, what you guys, does anybody have some questions? I'd love to hear anything anybody's asked.
You mentioned that you had you booked some interesting genres that you had never dealt with before. What were some of the more interesting genres that you hadn't dealt with?
Oh, it was genres that I wasn't a fan of, honestly, like jam band stuff. Just not my jam, so to speak. And, some kinds of electronic music. It was challenging because, I did get to book all the stuff that I loved, but every once in a while they'd say, hey, we need you to book this. There's a need for this. Book this. And when it's out of your wheelhouse, it's a lot riskier. You take a venue that has like one type of music, like the White Horse or Hotel Vegas. It's very easy. They know their genres, they know how to market it, they know who's going to come, they know how to reach those people. But when you're jumping all over the place and working with different types of artists all the time, it is challenging and risky. But honestly, talent buying is legalized gambling. That's what it is. You're hoping and betting and praying that people will come. And there are a lot of factors that sometimes, work against that. But, the idea is you get good instincts for it, you look for trends, you pay attention. But yeah, so honestly, to be fair, when the boss is telling me to book genres that I'm not a fan of, and anytime somebody is telling you to do something outside of your wheelhouse, it's actually always a really good thing. That is how you learn, that is how you grow. Like when I was a music journalist, I won't mention the name of this band, they're so good. I love them so much, and I became friends with them, and I was the person that did all of their interviews, did all their reviews, and it actually made the other music journalists very mad at me, and I felt bad about it. And then one day the editor said, hey, I need you to review this album. And I listened to it and I didn't like it. And I called my editor and I said, I'm sorry, can you give this to somebody else? I know other people are dying to get their mitts on this. And he said, why? And I said, I'm just not crazy about it. And I have such a good relationship with these guys. And they're a huge band in that market. And he said, Adrienne, I'm going to make you do this. And what's going to happen is it's going to take you 10 times as long as it normally would to write this review, but you're going to learn a lot. And damn it, he was right. I listened to that record over and over and over again. And the thing about this artist is that there's lots of layers going on. There's a story behind the album. There's a story behind each song. Actually, I could probably say the name of the band because I ended up loving the album. It's Calexico. But it took me like really sinking my teeth into it and not just having a knee-jerk reaction. And then I learned what the good things were, and I could see where they were coming from. But it took so much time, and I was like tearing my hair out. I was like, I just want to be done with this. But now looking at that, I think it's one of the best things I've ever written. And I called my editor and I was like, you're a genius, thank you.
Yeah. Shoot.
Yeah. As I guess someone who's pretty new to the music scene here, what are some of the differences you've noticed between music scenes from Arizona and from New York and LA as comparison to what's going on in Austin now?
Well, they're all so different.
Yeah, and Adrienne, you might say the question a little bit too, because
Okay.
you're the only one with the
Yeah, he wanted to know what's the difference between music scenes in these different places like Los Angeles, New York, Austin, Tucson. Well, Tucson, small scene. That's easy to sum up. Like if we would have a really amazing French artist coming through town, and it's pretty easy, you pair him up with Naïm Amour. He's the only French artist in town, done. Here, when you're booking a band and you're looking for support, there's like, I don't know, umpteen options that would be a great fit that you want to give the opportunity to, and that's a lot harder. And just like the sheer volume of bands and artists we have here, and honestly, the sheer volume of talent, I'm not going to say it's on par with Los Angeles, but like if Tucson is here and LA is here, Austin is here. There's so much good stuff. You're never on top of it all. You're always going to keep learning more. Another difference between Austin and other places is politics. Politics and music is a huge thing here. I have friends who do that for a job full time. I did not know of that in any of the other places I've lived. And
And you mean like, state level stuff that's supporting
the music
musicians?
commission,
Yeah, all that stuff.
yes, we've got the entertainment division.
There's a lot of support.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with music politics, and I never really bothered with that before, but here, that's just what's going on. So I kind of dove into that as well. I was on the music commission for one day because I told them I was pressured into doing it, and I said, I'll do it unless it's going to mess with my business. And they said, no, it won't. And I was there one day, and I was like, nope, not doing this. I love and support the people and the friends that do it, but for me, I don't want it to hurt my client relationships. So that's one big difference. LA is just so vast. So like on the band side, on the artist side, there's just a lot. There's a million different scenes, and a lot of really strong scenes. Now what's going on infrastructure-wise, what's really different about Los Angeles and how Austin was is it's so collaborative isn't the right word, but if you are working in music in Los Angeles, you are constantly meeting with other people, constant lunches. You, like, say you're an A&R, you're having lunches with people from Golden Voice who put on Coachella. You know, you're having, like, it's very social that way. And that's what puts them ahead, because they learn from all these people who are doing these other things. And then they've got all these relationships. Oh yeah, my buddy that I have lunch with, he's a really great music attorney who's, you know, worked with Swizz Beatz and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I'd love to introduce you. And that isn't really, it's getting better here, but that was a huge difference. When I moved here, everybody was in their own corners. Now it's a lot more collaborative. There are organizations, there's networking events. It's getting better. It's definitely getting better. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
Any other guys have questions? I kind of have some questions. You know, nothing over there, Colin? Okay, so, you know, if you, obviously, Vince, everybody's probably a little bit of an artist, but, you know, obviously Vince is too. I'm sure Vince would, you know, in his life would like to know, like, what to do. Maybe you're gigging a little bit, you're hanging out. I mean, how do you give bands advice or artists advice to how to approach, how do they go to the next level, right? You know, what would be your first way of approaching those things?
Ooh, well, it's all individualized. You know, it depends on your genre. You know, what you might do as a hip hop artist is not what you do as like a Latin artist or an indie rock artist. And I work with all of them. In fact, that's been a huge part of my identity in this business for a long time. I know I've talked a lot about indie rock stuff and post-punk stuff, but it's very important to me to make sure that all voices are heard as long as the talent is there, you know, whether it's hip hop, R&B, Latin music, you know, whatever. If it's, you know, somebody coming in from another country, there's amazing things happening in Africa right now. So like that is really, really important. Sorry, I got off.
No, it's okay. Yeah, no, just, you know, but if you are a young band, maybe you're doing some gigs, right? You know, you've got some good songs, a few maybe, but maybe not that great. You know, who knows? Maybe some good recordings. But you know, how do you? Where do you tell them to start?
Well, I mean, it kind of goes back to the number one key to success in this business, which is relationships. Mm-hmm. So, you know, get out there, collaborate, reach out to people. I mean, of course, number one, make sure you've honed your craft. Make sure you're creating good music that you believe in, that you can stand by. And then from there, it does get way more individualized because everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. Some people are really good at social media, which is so important these days. And some people a lot of people don't want to have anything to do with it, and they need help with that. So, number one, relationships, because that's going to get you everything that you need. So, you know, start spending time doing some research and figuring out who's out there, who's doing stuff, how can you connect with them, and what can you do for them. Another thing that's really important is that people in the music industry, our bullshit meters are always set high. And you will be a lot more successful reaching out to people if you show genuine interest in who they are, first of all, and then also if you have something that you can bring to the table as well. Because people know when somebody's reaching out and it's just an ask, you know, I want this, that person's probably going to walk away. So I've told folks who, like, for example, an artist might say, I'm having a really hard time getting booked at this particular venue. And I'll tell them, well, like, what shows have you seen that you would want to get on? And they'll tell me, and then I'll say, oh, well, this person booked those shows, and he actually goes to those shows. Look him up on social media. When you go to the show, you see his face, go up and say hi, introduce yourself, and talk about him, talk about that person. Ask them questions, tell them how much you love their work. And then eventually they're going to say, so who are you? Like after you've flattered them, but like not in a dishonest way. Eventually they're going to say, so who are you? What do you do? And then that's when you tell them who you are. And the more like you don't push, the more they're going to ask. So it's about making these genuine connections. And what I always tell people is like, spin is okay. Dishonesty is never okay. So you want to make sure that you're approaching folks in a genuine way. I have an artist friend who is supremely gifted at this. It's unbelievable. They can get into any space and make friends. And we will be hanging out and they'll be like laughing at their phone and I'll be like, what's going on? Oh, Wayne Coyne from Flaming Lips is sending me the funniest pictures. And it's just because they are such an endearing, engaging, genuine person that even when they meet really famous people, those folks feel very comfortable giving them their number, which is, I mean, that's a talent. So I watch that person and try to figure out what they're doing right. And I mean, you want to make it your own style. You don't want to be imitating somebody else. But yeah, watch people who are doing things right. Another artist that I've worked with who's really good at this is Juan from Black Odyssey. He carries himself so well, he can walk into any space. You know, he could walk backstage at the Grammys and nobody's going to question him. And he's able to make these connections, and he's got like one foot in Austin, but like mostly he's in Los Angeles, and he's doing stuff with Wiz Khalifa and huge names. And I could not be prouder of that kid because I met him when he first moved here, and his music has changed and evolved so much. And what I told him was, the music's not there yet. I know you're going to figure it out. But honestly, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because I see you, I see your focus, I see how good you are at carrying yourself in the right way. And that turned out to be true. And he's doing great. And yeah, check out Black Odyssey. It's really, really good music.
Cool. Well, awesome. Well, cool. Well, so thank you so much for, sharing, your
my pleasure.
Story and, insight and all that stuff. It's really, really appreciated. So very cool.
Thank you.